I'm Michael, a 35-year-old architect with a seemingly perfect marriage. But just when I thought our relationship was unbreakable, everything changed. I remember it well. It was a Saturday morning. I accidentally glanced at Sophia's cell phone screen and saw a suspicious text message. It was from an unknown number and read, "Honey, last night was wonderful. I miss you already and can't wait to see you again." In an instant, suspicion grew like a weed in my heart. I tried to convince myself that it was just a misunderstanding, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. I began to watch Sophia's every move, and I became more and more uneasy with her behavior. She often received text messages late at night, but quickly turned off her cell phone screen when I approached. Once, I peeked at her cell phone while she was in the shower and found more ambiguous text messages, such as, "I'll never forget every moment we spent together," and "Your kisses were so sweet. I wish time would stop forever." I knew I had to find the truth. I started collecting evidence in secret, like an amateur detective. I installed a doorbell camera, hoping to catch suspicious visitors. Sure enough, one day, the camera caught a man coming to our house when Sophia wasn't home and staying at the door for a long time. I checked her credit card statements and found some unusual purchases. There was a bill for $500 for an upscale restaurant on a night when Sophia told me she was with friends. There was also a hotel receipt dated the weekend Sophia claimed to be traveling. I even secretly checked her email for any suspicious messages. In her sent folder, I found an email address to the mystery man. In the email, Sophia expressed her thoughts and love for him and attached a nude photo of her. Each discovery was like a sharp knife, stabbing me in the heart. The fragmented clues gradually pieced together a truth I didn't want to face. My wife, the woman I had loved for 10 years, had betrayed our marriage. I remember the night I got up the courage to confront Sophia. I was about to install more surveillance equipment when Sophia suddenly came home. She saw the camera in my hand and turned pale. I looked her straight in the eye and questioned her if she had anything to confess to me. At first, she tried to deny it, but after I showed her the evidence, she finally broke down. Tears welled up in her eyes and she fell to her knees, apologizing and begging for forgiveness. She admitted to having a year-long affair with a coworker. She said it was a mistake, a moment of confusion, but I could see the guilt and remorse in her eyes. I stood there, feeling the sky spinning, anger, hurt, disbelief. All kinds of emotions like a tidal wave overwhelmed me. The woman I loved, the partner I trusted, had betrayed our vows. At that moment, I felt like my world was falling apart. The foundation of our marriage began to loosen, and the building of trust collapsed. I didn't know how to face this cruel fact, and I didn't know where our future would go. All I knew was that I needed time to digest the shock and space to revisit our relationship. And this is just the beginning of a long and painful journey for me. After Sophia confessed her affair, I felt anger and betrayal sweep through my body. I couldn't believe that my wife, whom I had loved for 10 years, would cheat on me so cruelly. My heart was filled with a desire for revenge, and I fantasized about giving her a taste of betrayal and letting her feel the pain I was feeling right now. I thought about publicizing her affair so that everyone would know her true colors. I even thought of finding the third party and kicking his ass. In my craziest moments, I even thought of hurting myself to punish Sophia, but reason prevailed over anger. I knew that if I did that, I would be no different from Sophia. I didn't want to be a despicable person. I didn't want to let hatred rule my life. I began to try to deal with the situation in a more rational way. I asked my best friend Jack to come out for a drink and told him what happened to me. Jack is a very wise man. After listening to my story, he didn't immediately take my side in criticizing Sophia, but patiently asked me, "What do you want most? Is it revenge or an honorable ending?" Jack's words made me ponder. I realized that what I wanted most was not revenge, but dignity. I wanted to handle the situation with grace and not let my life be messed up by Sophia's mistake. I also consulted a divorce lawyer. The lawyer told me that if I could prove Sophia's affair, I would have an advantage in terms of property division and child custody. But he also warned me that publicly accusing Sophia could hurt our children and give them a bad name. The lawyer's words reminded me that I had a more important responsibility: my children. They were innocent, and should not have to pay for the mistakes of adults. I decided to protect them as much as I could from the storm. Over the next few days, I tried to find a balance between anger and sanity. Whenever my anger flared up again, I would go to the gym and hit the sandbags to get all my negative feelings out. Then, I would meditate and try to calm my mind. I also started keeping a diary to record my thoughts and feelings. Through writing, I gradually realized what I really wanted. I wanted a clean ending, I wanted to maintain my dignity, and I wanted to protect my children. It was not an easy decision, but I knew that I had to do it for the sake of my own future and that of my children. I had to approach the issue with reason and intelligence, not blinded by hatred. Though the trauma still lingers in my heart, I know that only by letting go can I truly begin a new life. Handling this situation with grace is the best gift I can give myself and my children. In a tug-of-war between anger and reason, I chose the latter. It doesn't mean that I have forgiven Sophia, but that I have chosen to forgive myself and move on. It's a difficult process, but I believe that as long as I stick to my principles, one day I will find my own happiness again. Shortly after I decided to deal with the issue in a rational manner, Sophia initiated a divorce. She stated that she didn't want to continue to hurt me and didn't want our children to grow up in a broken home. She wanted us to end the marriage in a mature and peaceful manner, with a fair division of our assets. At first, I was overwhelmed. Although my heart has accepted the possibility of divorce, but when it is really in front of, I still feel a moment of bewilderment. Our common house, car, savings, these things we once shared, now need to be divided into two. Sophia and I began a series of negotiations. We sat down and made a detailed list of all our joint assets. We bought our house together when we got married, and both of us paid half of the down payment and monthly payments. Sophia bought our car 3 years ago, but I've been responsible for the insurance and maintenance costs. Most of our savings come from my income, but Sophia also makes a significant contribution. Negotiations did not go well at first, with Sophia arguing that she deserved more, given her contribution to the family. I, on the other hand, felt that she should not ask for more as her affair had already caused me a great deal of harm. Our arguments sometimes got heated. I remember once, when we were discussing how to split our stock investments, Sophia lost control and yelled at me, accusing me of being a selfish person. I couldn't help but retaliate by taunting her about how she doesn't think about her family when she's looking for a man. We attacked each other until we were both exhausted. Gradually, however, we began to realize that this kind of arguing was pointless. It only worsened our relationship and did not help to solve the real problem. We decided that for the sake of our children and ourselves, we had to put aside our personal emotions and negotiate in a more rational way. We began to try to put ourselves in each other's shoes. I tried to understand Sophia's contribution as a full-time housewife and mother, and Sophia began to realize how much her mistakes had hurt me. We both realized that no one is totally innocent or totally guilty in this process. After weeks of discussions, we finally came to an agreement that was acceptable to both parties. We decided to sell the house and split the sale proceeds equally. Sophia could keep the car, but she would have to cover all future expenses herself. Our savings and investments will be divided in proportion to our respective contributions. As for the children, we agreed to raise them together, and they will live in both of our homes on a rotating basis. This agreement is not perfect, but it is the best we can achieve under the present circumstances. It gives us a fresh start, a chance to begin again. During the negotiations, I also began to think about my future. I knew that life after divorce would be a whole new challenge. I needed to readjust to being a single father and find a new balance between work and family. The divorce was finally finalized, and I was officially starting my single life. I had to start looking for a new place to live after leaving the house we had lived in for years. This was a new challenge for me. In the past, Sophia had taken care of all these things, but now I had to face it all alone. I started searching for rentals online and in the newspapers. I needed a place that wasn't too far from my children's school and preferably close to my work. But I soon realized that it was not easy to find a place that met all the criteria. Some were in good locations, but the rent was way out of my budget. Others were in the right price range, but the living conditions were unacceptable. During the search for a new home, I also began to realize how different my life would be without Sophia. In the past, we used to discuss every decision together, from choosing the color of curtains to deciding on weekend activities. But now, I had to make all the decisions myself. This sudden freedom can be a bit overwhelming at times. I remember once, when I finally found an apartment that looked good. I want to see it on a whim. But as I stood in the middle of the empty living room, I suddenly felt a great sense of loneliness. It was like waking up in an unfamiliar city with no one familiar to you. But I knew that I had to face this loneliness with courage. It was a necessary step to rebuild my life. I began to try to enjoy my time alone. I restarted my love of reading and spent some quiet time every night. I also started going to the gym more often to release stress and reinvent myself. Gradually, I began to realize that this kind of independent life has its advantages. I can live according to my own rhythm, do not have to accommodate others. I began to recognize myself again and found that I am actually stronger and more resilient than I thought. I also began to learn some new life skills. I learned how to cook a decent meal, how to use the washer and dryer, and how to fix a leaky faucet. Each new skill I learned made me feel like I was taking another step forward. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life. I found a new comfortable home, started trying new hobbies, made new friends. I started taking my kids to the park, to museums, to all the places we wanted to go but didn't have the time. I wanted them to know that even without mom, we are still a complete family. Just when I thought I could leave the past behind, fate played a joke on me. That day, I was shopping for daily necessities at the supermarket. As I pushed my shopping cart past the shelves, I suddenly saw a familiar figure. It was Sophia, my ex-wife. We both froze, and the air seemed to freeze. I didn't know what to say or do. I didn't even know how to face her. And Sophia looked equally embarrassed. Her eyes wandering as if she was looking for an escape route. But eventually, we came closer to each other, and Sophia spoke first. She asked me how I was doing and how the kids were doing. I answered mechanically, my mind going blank. I noticed the lack of a ring on her hand and wondered if she too had been through a painful time. Then Sophia began to explain why she had betrayed me in the first place. She said it was a mistake she'd regret for the rest of her life. She said she never stopped loving me, that she just lost herself for a moment. She asked if it was possible for me to forgive her and give her a chance to start over. As I listened to her, mixed emotions swirled inside me. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hug her again, to tell her that everything would be okay. But another part of me couldn't forget the pain of being betrayed. It's like a dull knife that slowly cuts into your heart until you're numb. Sophia continued to confess to me. She said that the reason for her affair was that she felt that our life had lost its passion. She said I was always busy with work and had little time for her and the children. She felt lonely and neglected. And that man, he gave her attention, he gave her excitement. But she soon realized that it wasn't real love. It was just a moment of confusion, a terrible mistake. Sophia cried and told me that the divorce was the most painful time in her life. She said she regretted every day and missed me and my children every day. She pleaded with me to give her a chance to prove that she had changed and that she would do everything for the family. As I listened to her, my heart felt like it was being torn in two. I wanted to believe her, but I didn't know if I could trust her again. The hurt of betrayal doesn't heal so easily. I told Sophia I needed time. I needed time to think, to heal. I couldn't just forgive her as if nothing had happened. That would be unfair to me. Sophia nodded, her eyes filled with tears. She said she understood and that she would give me time. But she also pleaded with me not to close my heart completely. She said she would wait for me, no matter how long it took. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about the encounter. I thought about Sophia's words over and over again, trying to make sense of her behavior. I also wondered if our marriage had really come to an end. I talked to my best friend about it. He was silent for a long time, and then he asked me if I was still in love with Sophia. A question I couldn't answer. Love? Maybe. But trust? That can't be easily repaired. I also consulted my lawyer. From a legal point of view, our divorce is finalized and I am not under any obligation to accept Sophia again. But the lawyer also said that the law can only solve superficial problems and that a real marriage is based on love and trust. It was a decision I had to make myself. I know that whatever decision I finally make, it won't be easy. It takes courage to forgive, and it takes courage to leave. But I had to make a choice, because I can't live in the shadows of the past forever. I have to move on, for myself and for my children. After days of deliberation, I was still at a loss. I don't know if I should give Sophia a second chance. On the one hand, I still love her and I don't want our family to break up. But on the other hand, I wasn't sure if I could still trust her and love her as unreservedly as I had before. I told Sophia I needed more time. It wasn't a decision to be taken lightly. I needed to think carefully about our future, and I needed to be sure of what I really felt inside. I also needed to see her change and rebuild trust between us. Sophia said she understood. She said she would wait for me and respect whatever decision I finally made. She promised to demonstrate her change and her commitment to the family through her actions. Just when I was still pondering whether I should accept Sophia's request to get back together, a sudden news completely disrupted my life. That day, I was about to pick up the kids from school when I received a call from Sophia. Her voice sounded so weak that I immediately realized something was wrong. Sophia told me that she had been feeling unwell recently, so she went to the hospital for a checkup. The results showed that she had advanced ovarian cancer. The news came as a bolt from the blue, and I felt like the sky was spinning and I could hardly breathe. I immediately rushed to the hospital to see Sophia, and when I entered the room, I hardly recognized her. The once cheerful woman now looked so fragile and helpless. Her face was pale, and her eyes were full of fear. When she saw me coming, Sophia couldn't stop crying. She told me that she was afraid to leave this world, afraid that she would never see me or the children again. She said she knew she had made an irreparable mistake, but she didn't want to leave like this, that she had too much to say to me, too much to make up for. I held her hand, and my heart was full of mixed feelings. Once, I thought betrayal was the biggest problem between us. But now, in the face of the threat to our lives, those disputes seem to have become unimportant. The doctors tell me that Sophia's condition is already serious. She needed to start treatment immediately, but even then, her chances of survival were slim. I felt a great sense of despair at this news. I couldn't imagine losing her. I couldn't imagine our children losing their mother. Even though we were divorced at this point in time, I knew I couldn't just leave her behind. No matter what happened, she was the mother of my children and the woman I had loved. I decided to support her through this difficult time and fight the disease with her. But the decision wasn't easy. While taking care of Sophia, I also had to deal with my own feelings. We were divorced, and I was supposed to start a new life. But now I had to deal with the woman who had hurt me so much. My heart is full of conflicts and struggles. On the one hand, seeing Sophia so vulnerable and helpless filled my heart with compassion. I remembered the good times we had, the vows we shared. But on the other hand, I couldn't forget the hurt that her betrayal had caused me. That kind of pain has been deeply engraved in my heart. I began to devote myself to Sophia's treatment. I accompanied her to chemotherapy and shaved her hair. I learned to cook light meals to help her regain her strength. I read her favorite books every day to try to distract her. The process was very difficult. The side effects of chemotherapy were excruciating for Sophia, who often vomited and felt weak. Sometimes she couldn't sleep at night because of the intense pain. Seeing her suffer made my heart ache like a knife. But I never wanted to give up, because I knew that Sophia needed me and our children needed me. I'm the backbone of the family. I have to be strong. I have to keep going. However, this does not mean that I am at peace. Whenever I saw other happy families in the corridors of the hospital, I felt a pang of bitterness. I kept asking myself, why did our marriage come to this? Why did fate treat us so cruelly? Sophia's condition is a constant reminder of the fragility of life. It made me rethink our relationship. In the face of death, many grudges seemed so trivial. I began to ask myself, have I really let go? Do I still love her? But I know there are no easy answers to these questions. There is often only a thin line between love and hate. Our relationship has been tainted by hurt and betrayal. Even if I choose to forgive, we will never be the same again. Gradually, with the help of therapy, Sophia's condition began to show some signs of improvement. It's still a long way to go, but we can all see the light of hope. This disease has changed our lives. It made us realize the meaning of life again. It made me realize that instead of dwelling on the pain of the past, we should seize every day in the present. Supporting Sophia through this doesn't mean I'm ready to accept her again. It will still take time to resolve our issues. But I realize that the most important thing right now is for her to recover and for our children to grow up healthy and happy. During Sophia's treatment, I began to re-examine my own life. As I watched her wasting away under the torment of her illness, I couldn't help but think that if I were to face the same situation one day, would I have the courage to face it? Will I be satisfied with my life? I began to reflect on my life. All these years, I had been running around with my family and my career, but I had never really stopped to think about what I really wanted. Was I really happy? Was I really satisfied? Sophia's condition is a constant reminder of the fragility and impermanence of life. No one knows what will happen tomorrow. Today, we may be arguing about the smallest things, and tomorrow, one of us may be gone forever. I began to reassess my priorities. I realized that health and family are the most valuable assets than money and status. I began to spend more time with my children and participate in their development. I began to pay more attention to my physical and mental health by taking up yoga and meditation and going to the gym. I also began to reflect on my role in the marriage. Did I give Sophia enough love and support? Did I really fulfill my responsibility as a husband? Did I really fulfill my responsibility as a husband? Sophia's betrayal certainly made me suffer, but should I also reflect on my own shortcomings? At the same time, I was thinking about my own future. How will I cope if Sophia doesn't beat the disease in the end? Should I continue our reunion program? Or should I be brave enough to start a new life? There is no standard answer to these questions. But through this period of reflection, I have come to realize that no matter what the future holds, I should face it with a positive and grateful mindset. I began to learn to appreciate the little things in life. A cup of coffee in the morning, an outdoor game with my children, a good book that touches my heart. All these seemingly ordinary things have become treasures in my life. I also began to pay more attention to my inner self. I began to write in my diary, recording my thoughts and feelings. I began to communicate more with my friends, sharing each other's life experiences. Through this, I rediscovered myself and found inner peace. Gradually, I realized that happiness is not a destination, but a journey. It is not in the distance, but in the present. It is not in others, but in your own heart. Right now, I don't know what the future holds. Sophia's condition is still recurring and our relationship is still full of uncertainties. But I have decided that no matter what happens, I will face everything in my life with the most sincere and kind heart. I will try to be a better man, a better father, a better friend. I'm going to dissolve hate with love, hurt with understanding, and resentment with forgiveness. It's not an easy road, and I know there are many challenges waiting for me ahead. But I believe that as long as I hold on to my beliefs, and as long as I don't lose hope and courage, I will be able to find my own happiness. Today, I share this story in the hope that it will give some insight to those who have experienced or are experiencing betrayal, hurt, or illness. I want to tell you that there are no hurdles in life that cannot be overcome, and there are no knots that cannot be untied. As long as we learn to let go, learn to forgive, and learn to love ourselves, we will be able to get through the difficult times and usher in a new tomorrow. Remember, no matter how hard life is, never give up hope, because hope is the guiding light to happiness. Let's go bravely into the future and create our own wonderful life. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.